Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at onpurposely.com.
Until a ring is on the finger, this other person that you may or may not be going out with, even if it's a healthy relationship, they are, until you are married, a brother or a sister in Christ. Okay? That is their position in your life. You're not assuming anything else. The other thing I always say is make sure that the level of your connection never exceeds the level of your commitment.
Greetings, friends, and welcome to the last episode of Season 2, the season finale, so to speak, of Snacks and Good Company, brought to you by Vision House. They do wonderful, wonderful work, and we're going to talk about them a little later. Cards on the table right now. I had a gorgeous, handcrafted episode for you here for the season finale, and I also had a hard drive that crashed. And on that hard drive, believe it or not, was that episode that I beautifully and lovingly made for you. So I don't know if I panicked. I just, let's just say I'm still dealing with the fallout of that. And if you've ever had your laptop stolen or your desktop crash or anything like that, if you've lost intellectual property that you need, you know what I'm going through right now. So anyway, I was like, what am I going to do for season 5? Now, here's a beautiful thing is that the surprise I had for you, I was able to salvage. So that's a blessing, and that's still going to happen. All the other material, gone. So I emailed our good friend Lisa Anderson from Focus on the Family. That email had a lot of capital words in it, capital letters, I should say, of just saying help, 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 problem, help, help. And she was so gracious to join us. Lisa was a part of, I think, practically every episode. And so this feels like a recap. We talk about, we talk about so much. We talk about the ministry of Facebook Marketplace. I know, you're like, how does that have to do with being single? Trust me, it works. We talk about hard single moments in this first segment. We talk about something that a lot of you emailed about. And I'm in this scenario too, in this situation, is when you are single and you're taking care of an elderly parent. We talk a lot about that because Lisa was in that scenario as well. So we have that and a lot more. It's just a great segment. And thank you so much to Lisa Anderson for saving this episode and quite frankly, saving my life. Thank you, Lisa. We start this segment off with just commiserating about my situation. And she actually had a similar situation happen to her.
Did you ever have those moments where you're like, I don't know if I'm walking in faith or if I'm delusional?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not freaking out. So is this a fruit of the spirit that I'm experiencing? Or
I would take it
on the verge of a nervous breakdown and it's just the calm before the storm? I don't know which one it is.
Sometimes it's a both and.
Okay.
I had, even reading your email, and I just had this flashback to college when I typed out a 12-page paper on my friend's word processor, which was amazing technology at the time.
It was.
And then I remember her telling me, because I wanted to use it, she's like, okay, it's cool. It's just that this, for some reason, my save mechanism isn't working. So you got to make sure you just like keep it, or the battery in. So I had to keep it plugged in. And I did until I got to page 12. And then I accidentally leaned back and kicked out the plug and lost the whole thing. Yep. So I actually had a revisit of that when I read your email. So I feel yeah, I'm there. Yep.
The funny thing is I said to myself, maybe 2 days ahead of time, isn't this how it goes? I said to myself, what would happen if this crashed? Like, I should probably back this up. And then I thought, yeah, I will back it up at some point. So when it did crash, it was like almost like, okay, you did think that was going to happen, and it did. And so then you automatically start going into, well, like I do, plan C, D, E, F, G, H, I. And I don't know if that's trauma related or whatever, but that's when I have to trust the Holy Spirit and stop, because I will do 50 things, none of which are going to help, but just gives me some sort of comfort that I'm doing something, none of which is helping the actual problem. I first have to still myself. And if I still myself, then, you know, I can allow myself to hear from the Holy Spirit. So I don't know what I'm experiencing right now. You know when else I experienced this? You took care of your mother, right? In her later years. When like traumatic things would happen with her, did you, what was your, and this seems unrelated, but it's not, because there are a lot of young women who were responding to the podcast saying that's the situation they're in, because that usually does fall to the single daughter, right?
Yeah.
What was your response when something would happen and you would know this is on me? Like, you have siblings. I have a fantastic, wonderful brother who I adore, and we are best friends and the Wonder Twins and all of that. But I'm in Florida and he's not, right? Mm-hmm. And when things would happen with her, it happens. I'm here. I'm the one. Was that hard single moments for you?
Yeah, I would
answer. You could be like, I didn't bang for all this, Sherry. I was just trying to come over here. I'm trying to help you out. And
it's so funny. I had a lady and her husband buy 2 chairs out of my living room yesterday, and all of a sudden we got into caregiving, and she was like full on in tears, just straight off of Facebook Marketplace. So I was like, here's my ancillary ministry of selling my furniture and ministering to people who are going through caregiving, because she was buying them for her dad who just went into assisted living and was having a super hard time. So I would say yes. I remember, and this is one of those situations where I said to myself how it is very true and real that God shows up with the grace that you need in the situation you are in and not a minute before. Because I remember, I mean, especially near the end, my mom had a couple pretty rough falls that were very traumatic for me. But I remember, like, she didn't even hurt herself externally. One was in her bedroom and, you know, carpet and everything. And she's a Norwegian. She can handle a fall. Okay. Yeah. So, but I remember just like she was super chill about it and all like, okay, but I couldn't lift her. I had to actually call the fire department for a lift assist because she couldn't help me help her, even though she wasn't, you know, that large or anything. Yeah. But, I put her pillow under her head and she just chilled there, and we talked and I held her hand and we waited for the firemen to come, which was a whole other scenario of hilarity because they walked in looking like they had just done a calendar shoot.
Oh no, I've been there. I saw the whole fireman thing come in.
They showed up and they were like, Dorothy, how are you? You know, and she's like, they just pop her right up and then they have to do all their checks and they're like, Dorothy, okay, how do you feel? And she leans into him and she said, I feel wonderful. Uh-huh. And now I'm like, oh, great. We're going to be falling off in here. So
she's still there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She was just ready for it. And so anyway, but I remember a couple of those things. In fact, I was jokingly thinking this the other day because I'm, you know, here in town, I go to a Presbyterian church. I'm pretty reformed theologically.
Yeah.
Anytime mom had a scenario, and I remember a lot of times for me, it was a hard, like an attitudinal thing. Like she would flip out about something or get angry with me or she would flip and be really nasty.
Yeah. Right.
I would have some real like hard emotional stuff around that. I remember driving to work and I would just turn and all of a sudden I was Pentecostal. And I was
it's good life.
I was like,
life.
This is where I love Tim Keller, but he is not going to show up for me right here. I need to raise my hand and call out the power of the blood.
Oh yes, plead the blood, plead the blood.
I pled the blood. I pled the blood down 21st Street many, many times. And so that I appreciate working at Focus on the Family, where I have the influence of many different denominations and faith traditions, because I just cherry pick whichever ones I need when I need them. It's good.
Oh, yes. So, Let me just give a plug for Pentecostal. I know there's a lot of issues, but in these scenarios, it will get you through.
Yeah,
so that's
sure.
True. Other scenarios, maybe not, but I know that feeling. And then you fast forward a little bit. My mother's still living, thank God, and fairly mobile, and still needs some caregiving, but not a lot, thank God. But then you start thinking, or do you? Okay, now who's? I keep saying I don't have a me. right? Like, so who's doing this for you, Sherry? Like, my brain will go there from time in the weirdest times. My brain will go there. Do you think like that?
That's probably my number one fear at this point in life. And started really with an awareness during caregiving because I saw that I was mom's me.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's really funny because this crops up kind of often.
No, I get that. And I have the only thing that I say to myself is that what you know of him?
Yeah.
That's what I say to myself to try to calm that fear.
Yeah.
Is that what you know? What is he the type of God that would be like, okay, you did all of that, you took care of your mother and now in your old age, there's no one, and good luck. Do you know him that way? And I have to say no.
Right.
I hate when people treat me a certain way when you know me.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, I'm late to everything, Lisa. So if y'all invited me to brunch at 10 o'clock, what is y'all calling me at 10:07 for? I'll see y'all at 10:15 like I always do. Like, don't call me talking about, are you okay? Yes, I'm fine. I'm late as usual. So knowing someone, knowing how they are, knowing his history and character with me, it goes back to something that we've said on this podcast series frequently, which is say true things to yourself. Mm-hmm. What's the truth? What's the truth? What's the truth? But I know that is a legitimate fear because I got emails of girls saying that they're the caregiver. And then in the back of their head, you'd be crazy not to think it.
Yeah.
Who's my caregiver?
Yeah. And the only thing, and here's what the Lord told me. And in fact, I just said this. I did an interview, I think it was last week with Chris Fabry on Moody, and we were talking about being single at Christmas and all this stuff around that. And there was a woman who called in and she was talking about caregiving and that fear of being alone and stuff. And I said, well, here's what the Lord told me during that season. And it basically, because I think to myself, how many people say, well, I'm so glad I really need to get married and have kids because I need to have someone care for me when I'm older.
Right.
And I'm like, well, first of all, let me tell you about my siblings who, were it not for me, I mean, we're talking 6 kids that could have cared for my mom and one showed up. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I said, there is no guarantee there. That is not some kind of weird insurance policy because kids don't show up. Kids have issues. Kids have whatever. And I said, you know what I know, whether you're single or whether you're married, the only person who is there for you in the end is Jesus himself.
Yeah.
And he is responsible for you and he will care for you. And how he does that is up to him. And it might be through immediate family and it might not be.
Yeah.
Because one of my biggest sadnesses, I can't remember if I told you this, was that I wasn't there when my mom died.
No.
So I'd been, and she was in her last 6 weeks, she had to be in a memory care unit because she lost her mobility with her last decline.
Okay.
And so I had been there. I knew it was the end. And I'd been there the entire day before and into the evening, but I was hosting Bible study that night. So I went back for Bible study. And actually my Bible study girls, they all went over because mom's place was next door and visited her and sang with her and kind of said their goodbyes.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I can't, I'm going to do Bible study. I'm going to get some sleep because I know I have to be back in the morning. Mm-hmm. Well, at 5 a.m., I got a call that she had passed away. And I remember saying, like, why wasn't I there? Why wasn't I holding her hand? Why wasn't I singing hymns to her? Why wasn't I praying her, through into the kingdom and all this stuff? And it was my housemate, Juliana, who said that I've repeated so many times. She said, Lisa, the one person who needed to be there was there, and that was Jesus. Yeah. And so that whole idea of like whatever he did for her and however he showed up was enough for her. And another example that I always use that's a little more practical, hopefully this will encourage you, is my mom's church out in Minnesota, tiny farm country church. Mm-hmm. Other than my mom, old, Esther Niequist was in her 90s. They were the 2 old ladies left.
Okay.
Esther lived in her farmhouse her entire life. And cared. She was single, never married, and she cared for every one of her family members, including her parents, as they died. They came back home to die, and she was kind of the one that cared for them. And then it became her turn. She had to leave the farmhouse. She could no longer be in there and stuff. I mean, we're talking like mid-90s at this point. Mm-hmm. And she was the last in her family and she was single. So who was going to be there? And a young couple in that church built an addition on their house.
Oh my goodness.
Bought a van that would accommodate her wheelchair and moved her in with them because God called them to do that. And I was just like, that for me was like, we don't even know who God has planned for us.
That is right.
At some point that is going to be, because that's his business with them.
Right.
It's who's he going to tell this is your ministry to walk and this is something you're going to do to bless someone else. And the fact that they were just in her church and they said, God's calling us to do this and we're going to do it. And so they cared for her till the end.
Let's cut in right there. Our friend Lisa Anderson from Focus on the Family. We'll have more with her. Listen, write these words down. Remember Esther Niequist. Write that down, print it out, put it everywhere. Because I honestly don't think it is a coincidence that my hard drive crashes. I email Lisa last minute, hey, can you join me and help me make episode 5 happen? She says yes, and she has that story. And we did not plan anything. I want you to know that. I did not send her any questions. I didn't tell her what I was going to talk about. I just launched into it and we started talking. And that story is such a story of God's faithfulness that I think we need to remind ourselves. All through this whole series, we kept saying, speak true things to yourself. Esther Niequist, the story of Esther Niequist is a true thing. And that true thing is God is faithful. He's faithful and he loves us. And if he's faithful to Esther Niequist, doggone it, he can be faithful to me. He will be faithful to me and faithful to you. So when you're battling that fear, and I don't know one single person that doesn't have that fear of, I'm going to die alone. Who's going to take care of me? I don't have any kids, or I don't have a husband. What's going to happen to me? It's all of our biggest fear. If not, it's in the top 2. But Esther Niequist's story should remind you that God is faithful. His eye is on you and he loves you. And he took care of her and he'll take care of you. All right, more with Lisa Anderson coming up. What is the word friendlationship? Are you in one? Do you even know what it is? We'll talk about it coming up in the next segment of Snacks and Good Company. Just taking a moment to say thank you to our sponsors, Vision House. They are doing the work of Jesus. You hear me? They are helping families break the cycle of homelessness, overcome trauma, poverty, and just overall helping them to flourish. You got to check them out like today, like right now. When you do, I guarantee you're going to want to get involved. You can find out about the amazing work they do and the people they serve at visionhouse.org. Again, visionhouse.org. Welcome back to Snacks and Good Company. Thank you so much again. I can't say it enough, so I'm going to just keep saying it to our friend Lisa Anderson from Focus on the Family for saving the day. And man, we got into some good stuff. This next segment, we're going to talk about why the grass is not always greener on the other side and how we know that. People always say it, but how do we know it? We're also going to talk about having a friendlationship. Do you know what that is? You may have one and not even know it. It's worth talking about, so we're going to get into that. The phrase, "you are not Julia Roberts," is uttered in this segment. And trust me, it sounds like it's discouraging, but it's actually encouraging. You are not Julia Roberts, we'll say that. But we start this off talking about something that Lisa discussed earlier in the podcast, and it is definitely worth revisiting.
The great thing about singleness and about scripture is that, and married people hate it when I say this, is that death levels the playing field.
Yeah.
Because no one is going into heaven married. Mm-hmm. And let me tell y'all who are married who might be listening here, and we love you too. But,
Absolutely.
it is, you will stand before the Lord on your own.
Yeah.
And marriage is a great thing, and it is a picture of Christ's covenant for us. And there is a lot that it does to sanctify people, but God uses singleness to sanctify as well. And in the end, the question for us is, what did you do with my son? Yeah. You're not going to look and say, well, my husband, he did this or he didn't do this.
Yeah.
Jesus is going to work with your husband on his own turn, again. And so that's why I say, ladies, whether you're single for a short season or a long season, your sure bet is Jesus himself. And that is it. Whether you are single, whether you are married, whatever, that's who we have to cling to. And that's our story. And that's our inheritance.
Brent says it all the time. I put all my chips on Jesus Square.
Yep.
All of them. All of them. And trust his love and his character for me, because that's what we have. And I think even before eternity that it levels the playing field if we allow it. And I said I was so happy. It seemed like a mistake to have done the Young Moms podcast and then the Singles podcast, because then that just didn't seem to connect. And everyone was like, why did you do that? It was because the moms one is the idea we had first. But I'm so glad I did it, because I heard their angst and I heard their anxiety and I heard their issues and I heard their struggles. And not one of them said to me, thank God I'm not single. Not one single solitary one of them said that to me. So it was easy for me, or easier for me, to hear all of that and then come over to this other side of the fence to talk to these girls where I live and say, nah, I'm not sure what y'all think is going on that side of the fence, but I spent some significant time over there. And if you think whatever you have here is going to be solved over there, I'm going to tell you that it's not, because the fears that you are saying may be different, but there's fear and anxiety on that side too.
Yeah. And why can't we all link arms and walk it out together and play on each other's strengths? Mm-hmm. Because that's where I'm saying, I mean, we've got stuff that the young moms are like losing their minds, where we could step in and we can be the strength and the burden bearer for them. Yeah. And vice versa, you know? They can maybe give us some, for those who love kids, give us some kid time, or give us some perspective, or give us some, you know, and it's like, again, we can band together and be that for each other, because we're going to trade, you know, I say this so often, we're going to trade some really hard stuff in singleness for hard stuff in marriage for those who get married, and some really good stuff in singleness will go, and then you get good stuff in marriage. And it's not a better than, or it's just a different than. It's not a better than. And so I think,
not a better than, it's a different than.
Absolutely.
Well, all right. I gotta ask one question. There's several people asking this. I'm sure you have been asked before. Friendships between guys and gals, single. Thoughts.
Thoughts. Oh, no, I just try to be best friends with married guys.
Yeah,
that's my... You did not hear me say that. I'll get fired from Focus on the Family. No, okay.
That's not what we meant when we said focus on the family.
Yeah, exactly. Don't focus on other people's families. Okay. No, here's the thing. I feel like I have had to like loosen up about this in recent years, because I used to be that one.
Where were you tight?
I was super tight in like this. First of all, like, don't even be friends with people of the opposite sex, because it's going to get weird. It's going to get inappropriate. I mean, I feel like I've been using the term friendlationship since about 1984 or something. I don't know. Because I've lived through a bunch of them. I was even in, Sherry, a group friendlationship. Like, is that even possible? But yeah, it is, because I did it.
Okay.
So...
Can you define friendlationship for us?
Yep. A friendlationship is when a guy and a girl are friends, and then one of them starts kind of liking the other one, and they decide, you know, but now it's awkward because they're also friends. That's all that's defined. Mm-hmm. So they're just going to bide their time or do what they can to kind of make things move in the direction they want without really putting things on the table. And so... You know, it's like there's no distinction, nothing's defined. They're hanging out all the time together. Mm-hmm. This is the way I say it. It's like, you know, Ashley and Ben, and they're friends at church and whatever. And now they've become friends. Like every Friday night, it's just assumptive that they'll hang out. They like the same movies. They have their ringtones. They know each other's Starbucks drinks, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then this goes on. I mean, it could go on for months. And then all of a sudden, Ben comes to Ashley and he's like, well, do you know, have you met Rachel? And she's like, who's Rachel? And he's like, that new girl in our small group. And she's like, well, no, I know who she is. And he's like, well, I'm thinking of asking her out. And now Ashley has the chance to either flip out and punch him in the face,
Right.
or go home and burst into tears and eat 2 pints of Ben and Jerry's.
Right.
Make 2 pints because 1 pint is a serving, so that's totally legitimate. But 2
Agreed.
pints, is where you go.
And some chips, because you need salt. You can't
And some
just have-
chips.
You
You
can't
got to
have
balance it out. Yeah.
This is Snacks and Good Company after
and a
all.
Diet Coke.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. But it's like there was nothing to find, so she has no leg to stand on. But he's clearly been using her for companionship and for all the benefits of a relationship. And this happens
Right.
in Christian circles, and it may or may not include sex at some point, and lots of people, it can tread into the friends with benefits. But it is just, I have a friend who did this, Sherry, for 7 years with a guy.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. So almost all of her 20s were invested in a guy who never had any intention of dating her. But he loved her as a friend. I mean, they were so compatible and got each other, and it was so much fun and whatever. And she was so personally convicted by this that she had, idolized him.
Yeah.
She had to sit down with him and break up with him officially from a non-relationship after 7 years. And for her, it was like a divorce. It took her 2 years. It took her 2 years to get over him. And I'm not even sure she entirely did. So,
Yeah.
So that's where I'm saying there's just a lot of messiness in it when people don't understand where they are. That said, I also say that until a ring is on the finger, this other person that you may or may not be going out with, even if it's a healthy relationship, they are, until you are married, a brother or a sister in Christ. Okay. That is their position in your life. You're not assuming anything else. The other thing I always say is make sure that the level of your connection never exceeds the level of your commitment. So this is where people get messed up, because all of a sudden, why are you brunching with his mother when you're not dating him? What is he? Why are you all in his mother's business and buying her gifts and hanging out with her? Like but women do that to try to get their hooks into a situation or make a relationship more than it is. And all of a sudden, because I've watched all the rom-coms, come on.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, after an hour and a half, he's supposed to open his eyes and see what's right in front of him and realize that, this was there all along, and now I need to put a ring on it. And that happens about negative 12% of the time.
You are not Julia Roberts.
I'm not. You are not. I don't care how you like your eggs. You are not Julia Roberts. Okay, so this is where women need to get a clue, because we are doing ourselves a disservice by hanging on to these men that have no business putting us in any kind of position of a relationship that's actually going to go somewhere. So if he stands up and he says, I want to date you, then now you have something to respond to and you can decide and whatever. But that said, we don't need to get all crazy in the other direction of like, I cannot, I can't
Starbucks with you.
Yeah, can't go to Starbucks. I can't, I'm not sure that I better do this missions trip because what if, something gets weird or goes sideways or whatever. I can't, have a conversation. Now, I would say, again, use your judgment and get other people into your life and in your business, because what you don't want to do is all day 24/7 text trails with some guy. Again, there has to be a level of appropriateness. And that's where I say, if all of a sudden you are spending more time with a guy than your other guy friends, you are giving more deferential treatment toward him than other ones, you sense your heart kind of tugging towards him. You're trying to impress him. You're spending an inordinate amount of time with him. Yeah. That's a red flag. Yeah. But I also say, there's a lot that we can learn from others in opposite gender. Serve alongside the men in your church. Do love other people. Be kind, ladies. Yeah. Be kind to the men in your life, single and married. Always think of, what does it look like to treat this person like Jesus would treat them, regardless of that. And that is kindness. That is, being willing to help others, being willing to serve alongside others. And most of us know our hearts and know our tendencies, and we just have to watch out on that front.
Let's cut in right there. I told you would love the discussion on friendlationship. You may not love it if it's calling you out. You may be like, I didn't want to hear that, or move on already. No, we are not going to move on. As a matter of fact, we are going to continue talking about that because I think it's a real issue and can be a real problem for us in our quest to be content as single people. So we'll continue talking about that and more with Lisa Anderson from Focus on the Family. And I still have your surprise for you. I saved that. That was salvageable, more than salvageable. I have it completely and in its totality. And Angelique will join us to talk about what that surprise is for you on this season finale of Snacks and Good Company. It's coming up. Welcome back to Snacks and Good Company. We are going to rejoin our friend Lisa Anderson from Focus on the Family. And again, just a reminder, we have your surprise coming up in just a little bit with our friend Angelique, who co-hosted this series with me. She'll be back and we'll do all of that coming up. But right now, in this segment, we're going to ask, who are the truth tellers in your life? That's very important as a single person. When you're married, whether that person is a truth teller or not that you're married to, you have the possibility of having someone in your space all the time and being able to see the things you're doing that may be a little off, speak those things to you. You just have someone there. When you're single, you can kind of almost be on an island, or you can give people what we call our representative, not the real us. But who do you have that is a truth teller in your life? We'll talk about why that is so important. And in this segment, we're going to continue talking about friend relationships and also more on, can guys and gals, single guys and single gals, be friends? Or even if one is not single and one is married, can men and women be friends? Is that possible, or is it always a problem? We're going to keep talking about that too.
I think I was really harsh in the other direction. Like, why can't we? Why can't we? Because I had so many, I'm a musician, and so I was in a lot of bands. I was always with a bunch of guys, and they were my friends, right? Mm-hmm. And then as each of them got married, if they did, then I put the boundaries in place, because guys aren't always bright enough to do that. Mm-hmm. God bless you, men, as you listen. But so I would be like, don't call me after 9:00. Don't text me at certain times, even though we had all of that before. We can't have it now, because I don't ever want the two of you going through a fight and her going in your phone and see that you called me at 11:52. I know that's nothing, but I know how I would feel. So for me, as my close male friends got married, I said to myself, she is their best friend. How do you respect her while still loving him? And that was a big thing for me. But I was always like, well, why can't we be friends? What do we do with the Holy Spirit if we can't be friends? And then I started hearing friends say the friend relationship. I'm glad I have a word for it now. And I was like, oh, I understand, because our hearts start leaning in inappropriately. And I think that a really good thing is something that you said, is surrounding yourself with people who can say that to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And listen to them. Give them the benefit of the doubt when they're mentioning that to you, instead of that, rejection, denial right off the bat.
And whether it's just friendship or whether it is someone that maybe you've started dating, having those objective eyes on whatever is going on here is necessary for protection, for accountability, for just good insight. I mean, here's what, this is like caveat, freebie, everyone, additional, because I have advice on so many things, all born out of my own mistakes. This is why dating apps and the whole online experience is so nutty, because you start talking to someone and you think it's all innocuous, but then it's been like a month. And now where you have experienced that person is so far, like so much further than where your friends are. Your friends might just know that now you're talking to someone. Well, you know their whole history. You haven't caught these people up. That's not a normal experience of going out to dinner as a group of friends and kind of all getting into the sphere. So I had this happen with a friend of mine who was practically like engaged to a guy before I finally met him.
Oh my goodness.
Well, what am I supposed to do to add insight to that? Because she's pretty much locked in with her heart. She's not going to listen to me and say, well, let me go through the 4.5 red flags that I see in the first 30 minutes here.
Yeah.
She's not there for it at that point. And that's why I'm like, we have to proactively go after people being in this experience relationally with us.
And I will say this, girls, as we close, that's another Pentecostal thing. I'm closing. I will say this, the times when I have not involved people, it's because I knew I was wrong. Or I knew that there was some kind of red flag already and I didn't want anybody to bring it up. Yep. And so that's a red flag to me to begin with, is if I am apprehensive to even involve anybody in this scenario, in this talk, if I don't even tell anybody, you know what I mean? Until it's far down the road, it's because I already in my head and my heart think that something's not right here. And I think you're going to say it. And so I don't let anybody know. So that's, to me, for me, that is one of the biggest red flags, is if I don't involve people from right from the beginning.
Yeah. And that's the point right there that you're making, is, first of all, back it up 3 steps. If you don't have people in your life who will say it, that you don't even have things to hide from, that's your first problem.
Yeah, it is.
I mean,
you need to probably fix that first.
You need to get some truth tellers in your life who are going to say, I always say that when I talk about dating, and it's probably one of the more offensive things I said in the dating manifesto.
Yeah.
Because I talk about having your team around you and helping you with all this kind of stuff. And I say, on your team, pick 4 people that have their heads on straight, that love you, that know you, and that are going to talk to you straight. They are truth tellers.
Yeah.
You pick 4 people. If those 4 people all agree that the guy you're dating is a loser, you cut it off, no questions asked.
Absolutely.
You say, I am taking that as a word. I don't care whatever that word is, you're taking it as a word, because those 4 people agree. And you have to admit that you are not in a state of mind to be able to make this decision on yourself, because something is off and you need that objective wisdom on that situation.
All right, we'll cut right there. Thank you so much to Lisa Anderson from Focus on the Family, who joined us for this whole series and then came in here and saved the day for episode 5. Thank you so much, Lisa. As I told her, I owe you one. She said, I just need a timeshare in Florida, which is where I happen to live. And yeah, you can timeshare anytime here, Lisa. Thank you so much. Now we are going to get into your surprise. This is what kept me going with the hard drive crash and all that went on with that. Knowing that I could still do this was very exciting to me. We talked about this at the beginning of the series, Angelique and I, and we were able to pull it off. We're going to get into it. However, the first thing I asked Angelique, as she joins us here at the end of the season finale, I asked her, what did she learn? What did she get out of this? She was a part of the interviews. She was a part of the roundtable discussions and the virtual discussions. And I wanted to know, as a co-host, what did she learn and what did she get out of this series? Here's what she had to say.
I think for me, what I came away with that I didn't have before was that something dropped down from head knowledge to heart knowledge for me. And it had been head knowledge for me for a long time, right? But being able to sit in it and experience it in the context of, as we started having these conversations, and I was just really like, yeah. And for me, it was that I'm okay. Like, I'm single and I'm okay. And in addition to that, I'm single, I'm okay, and I'm not depressed about it, and I'm not lacking anything, and there's nothing wrong with me. With every conversation that we had, the panel discussions and the round table, like with everything, every single time we sat down with these ladies and discussed it more and more, to your point about that growing confidence, I was just really like, no, we're really okay. And there's nothing wrong with us. Yes. Okay. We're good. Like, oh, so I'm not, like, again, back to that, I'm not crazy. Like, I really am good right here.
Yeah. What we set out to do was give God's girls the affirmation that we know that flows from Calvary, and from his throne. And I know that we did that. I have 100% certainty in our flawed, sinful selves, whatever. So it's not about us, but it's about what his spirit pulled together. And I'm comfortable with that. I know this series said Jesus is better than what we're showing you.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that when people talk about the church and they talk about themselves like outside of it, like I'm a part of the church.
Part of it.
Right? I'm in the mix, I'm in the milieu, I'm in the whole thing. And I apologize. He's better than what we've shown you.
Yep.
He loves you more than we've shown you. I'm sorry, girls. And here's something to tell you what I believe he actually says about you. And so to that end, I said to you in the beginning of this series, hey, let's write a song. And when I say let's, I mean you.
I say, was your idea.
It wasn't like I was like, here's a couple verses. Do something with that. No, I just said I wanted a song that women could hear. It resonated with them. I'm wondering how you did it. How did you approach writing this song before we let you sing it?
Clearly, of course, the process for me always starts with prayer. But for me, resounding in my head was the many conversations that we had leading up to, getting the opportunity, the awesome privilege of just interviewing these ladies and sitting with them and hearing their lives and their hearts.
Yeah.
And in the many conversations, the place that you always went to was exactly that scripture, the woman at the well, living water. And you would say, Anj, I just want them, when they listen to it, I want this to be, what Jesus gave to her. I want them to leave with living water.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of resounding in my head as we were just preparing and gearing up. And more often than you would realize, it came while I was driving, which is why I always keep my little voice note app or my digital recorder handy. Okay. And I can't tell you how many you can just hear me driving in the background, some rain or something, and I'm going da 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 da, like humming a melody. Yeah. I was driving in the car, and all I got was melody and lyrics came at the same time, and I was like, okay, that's something. Once I sat down with what I had, which was like 2 lines and a piece of a melody. And then I just started recalling all of our conversations leading up to, and then I started recalling some specific moments of conversations with these beautiful ladies, and it just kind of started flowing. And I was like, okay. And so got her done, and then we got a song.
It could not have been more perfect. And so Drew and you and Jason got together for the draft, and now you guys are here again. And
they called in some favors, so they called in a couple of friends too.
Okay, great.
So we got a whole little setup.
It's fantastic, and I just, ladies, as you're listening, I just want you to hear this, and this is, I was gonna say our little gift to you, but I really believe it's God's gift to you.
Yeah,
I really do, and
that's good.
So Anj and the fellas are going to sing us on out, and thank you so much for being with us during this whole series. And when you're listening to this in the future, because I really do believe that this is what it is now, but there's coming a time where it's going to really be something.
There's so many hearts yet to be freed. I do believe that.
Yes, and so if you're listening to this way in the future, this is just God's gift to you, this little melody that I hope blesses you. You ready, Anj?
We're good to go.
All right. Here's Anj, and is it Living Water? That's the name of the song?
Yeah, Living Water.
Living Water. All right, Anj and the guys are going to sing us out.
I thought that I was a word, only what other people could see. No joy inside, 'cause I couldn't find my fairy tale story, but now I see what you offered to me. A breath of fresh air after a drink of fresh water, and now I don't care what you think about me, 'cause I am your daughter. used to plan my life. First the man, then the wedding, then the kids. But now that I've gotten older without the dreams that I've planned in my hands, I wonder, God, did I do something wrong? Do you still see my tears? But now they've dried. And here's the reason why. 'Cause I caught a breath of fresh air after a drink of fresh water. And now my tears don't define who I am, 'cause I am your daughter. Only thing that really matters to me is how you see me. You came to me knowing my needs and every desire of my heart. You spoke to my thirsty soul. Fill me till I thirst no more. Now I receive what you've offered to me. I caught a breath of fresh air after a drink of fresh water. And now I don't care what they say about me, 'cause I am your daughter. Only thing that really matters to me is how you see me. Only thing that really matters to me is how you see me. Yeah, only thing that really matters to me is how you see me. Now that I've got that living water, yeah, I've got that living water. 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 I've got that living water.
Snacks and Good Company is presented by Purposely, produced by me. The co-host for this series is Angelique Struthers. Music is done by Matt Mason of Mason Haven Music. Thank you, Matt. Art design by Notoria Marketing. Sound engineering by Garrick Whitehead. Social media by Janessa Schuler Multimedia. And the recording was done in Studio Me in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Make sure you subscribe to this so that you have every episode. And now that we're here at the end, would you do me a favor? Would you share this with a single person that you know? Share this series. And also, if you can rate and comment on your favorite podcast app about this series, it'll help other people find it. Thank you so much, and we'll see you the next time, the next season of Snacks and Good Company.
And I've got that